my name's Alex Wilson, and we have Kyle DeVigi with us as well. We both have invested in condos in Calgary, and we continue to see great opportunity there. So a little background on myself to start with. Name's Alex Wilson, owner and broker of record at Remaxwealthbuilers. Been selling real estate in Toronto for over 11 years. Number one Remax agent in Ontario for individual transactions in 2019. 2020 stats aren't out. That's why it's still 2019 stats. Number 25 Remax agent in Canada and number 80 Remax agent in the world. Inducted on the Remax Hall of Fame and awarded the Remax Lifetime Achievement Award at 35. None of that is relevant to any of you guys on here. But what is relevant is, and this is what I'd like to talk about, is I turned a deposit of $39,300 into a $14 million real estate portfolio. And that includes 14 condos, a high park triplex, which I live in with my family, and an apartment building in Hamilton. And that is why we're buying condos in Calgary, is because we see scalability and growth in that opportunity. So I'll let Kyle introduce himself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kyle DeVigi. I'm a licensed sales representative, but more importantly, I've been investing in real estate since 2012, and I'm now a landlord and owner of 6 properties. So just like all of you out there, I've been investing and trying to grow my real estate portfolio every single day. Before I was in real estate, I actually managed Lotto 649 and Lotto Max draws nationally. So the actual ball draws that are conducted for the lottery, I was responsible for managing those. And I found it shocking that almost 40% of people out there were depending on winning the lottery in order to fund their retirement. They were gambling on their future, completely mind-blowing to me. So Alex and I founded Remax Wealth Builders a little over 2 years ago to actually help people invest in their futures instead of gambling on them by investing through real estate. And similar to Alex, I turned a small deposit, just a little over $38,000, into over a $4 million real estate portfolio. And we want to help all of you do the exact same thing.
Yeah, and no, Kyle never allowed me to win the lottery. I've known Kyle since high school.
It's not rigged. There's no way to do it.
No. So what we're going to start off with is really, why are we doing this? And why are we investing? So I took a snapshot of my portfolio. I'm very transparent with everything. This is everything I own, currently everything I've invested in with current market values. And then I'm looking at the values in 30 years. Why do I look at my values in 30 years? You've always got to look at the future and understand why you are doing this. Real estate does not provide instant gratification, but it does provide you the ability to grow generational and substantial wealth. So 30 years, all my mortgages are 30 years. That means that in 30 years, these will all be paid off. The tenants in the property will pay these off. But I went a little deeper recently. And to give you an idea of my background, it's in economics and finance. And I want to show people how small actions can help you generate great wealth into the future. So again, the background in economics dictates to me that the value of money today is not going to be worth the same thing as money tomorrow. There's inflation factors. So that $36 million portfolio, what's it actually worth in today's purchasing power? And that works out to just under $21 million when I factor in inflation. But that's great. We're $21 million, but what does that mean? Well, that's what I asked myself, and we put together a great video on that, and that's build your own pension fund. So I looked at it, I'm like, okay, well, my portfolio is going to be worth just under 21 million in 30 years. Well, what if I put an ROI on that? So if I have a pension fund, I want to know what my rate of return is on my assets. So typically, people are looking for their financial assets a 7% return, 6-7% return. Well, I applied a 5% return on this. It's just a way to analyze what this is. So again, my portfolio is fully paid off. So what's my rate of return on this portfolio? I could choose to leverage a portfolio and invest in other assets. I just know in 30 years, I'm going to have a portfolio worth $20 million, over $20 million, under 21 million. So if I applied a 5% return, that means it's going to generate for me an income. And this is where it gets exciting, an income of over $1 million a year. And that nasty word inflation again. So I want to reinvest 2% of that per year to protect against inflation. So that fund maintains its purchasing power. So that would, if I live off just 3% of that portfolio value, that would generate me an income of just under $625,000 per year. And that gave me, that was mind blowing to me. That's like, oh my God, I don't even need that much when I'm in that stage of my life, because all your mortgages are paid off, that kind of thing. Actually, how much money do you need to live every year? I'm like, this is crazy. And it really put in perspective on regards to, I'm like, I built my own pension fund. This is incredible. And I actually ran this by one of the top guys in one of the largest pension funds in Ontario. And he's like, yeah, that's essentially what it is. So everyone on this call has the ability to build your own pension fund. Now, you may go, oh, well, I can't build a portfolio of $14 million. Like that seems like too much. Well, the thing is, you don't need to. I broke it down here into little baby bites. What if your portfolio is worth $1 million today, $2 million a day, $3 million a day, $4 million a day? You can do all these things. These are all achievable goals. And what Kyle and I like to say, there's nothing special about us, unfortunately. No, I'm from a small town in Northern Ontario where I had to bus into the big metropolitan of Sudbury, Ontario, where Kyle's from. We both went to high school in Sudbury. Nothing special about us, just two small town northern boys that are living in the big city. But that's what real estate is. It's long and it's boring. But if you stay the course with it, that's when you can generate substantial wealth. A great video that we have on our YouTube channel is where we have the Portuguese immigrant that was a TTC driver. So that's the Toronto Transit. And he built a $15 million portfolio, and he just bought property and held on to it. And he recently passed away, and it was a big article in the Toronto Star, and we did a whole video on that because we just wanted to show the power of time in owning real estate. And you're going to have a tenant paying down the property while they're living in there. So we broke it down into bite-sized bites. Everyone can do this. Now, that's where we flow into why Calgary. Here's the thing. When Kyle and I first got into investing in real estate in 2012, we both bought in the same condo building. And the deposit on that was, the purchase price was very similar to what the purchase price is currently in Calgary for condos. We're both in the 260 range. And it was a 15% deposit on that purchase price. I can't do that, or we can't do that anymore in Toronto. Heck, we can't even do that in Southern Ontario anymore, let alone Toronto or the GTA. You're looking at minimum investments of $100,000 and purchase prices north of $500,000. So it's very difficult for us to replicate the initial investment opportunities that we saw. So when Calgary came across our desk in 2019, it caught our eye because the price points were starting in the 200,000s. We were able to buy with 5% down. So we're like, okay, let's do some investigation. We read negative things in the headlines about Calgary, but I saw that as opportunity, not negativity, because this is a first-tier city. So let's look into why Calgary is good. Well, it's the number one most livable city in North America for the last 2 consecutive years. Most livable city in the world. The fourth most livable city in the world. Top 5 on the Economist Intelligence Unit's Global Livability Index. It's located in the foothills of the Canadian Rockies. That's absolutely massive. That's a world-renowned area. Loads of green space, and the second lowest cost of living of Canadian cities, and the 9th lowest in North America. There's a reason I live in a triplex in Hyde Park in Toronto, because it's freaking expensive to own a house in Toronto. So when we looked at that, we're like, wow, Calgary looks like a great place to live. And just on a side note, we were on a call yesterday, virtual call with our marketing team. And our new lead on our marketing team is based in what city, Calgary? Whoops, I gave it a one. What city?
In Calgary.
Calgary. And we hadn't talked about our Why Calgary, the in-depth about the Why Calgary presentation. They knew about the Why Calgary presentation, but not in depth about it. She didn't watch any of your videos on it. And she brought up that, yeah, we're seeing a wave of people come to Calgary because they can now work from home. And then I jokingly kind of said, I was like, yeah, Vancouver is nice, but I don't know why anyone lives in Toronto, other than like money and family. It's not like it is a major metropolitan center, but in regards to a lifestyle, nature living, Calgary has it beat hands down. And when we go into looking at sunniest city in Canada, the most extensive outdoor pathway network for biking around, the second healthiest lifestyle in Canada, and the Rockies are right there. Banff National Park is your neighbor. You have 5 world-class ski resorts within two hours. Blue Mountain is their bunny hill where people learn how to ski. Over 200 hiking trails in Banff National Park. It's only a 1.5 hour drive away. It's not like Muskoka. For us to get to Muskoka, to get there in 2 hours, you got to leave at 4 a.m. in the morning. It is a true 1.5 hour drive. You're not dealing with traffic issues. So you have this affordable city to live in with this beautiful backdrop in the Canadian Rockies. And it's a tier 1 city in regards to income. And the infrastructure they have there, which we'll get into more. So it was really, we always love about live examples because we do this webinar every week. This is not a canned production and we're just sending it out there. We do it live. So every week we learn a little bit more. So when having that conversation with someone live on the ground, which always great to see. We forecasted that in January, and then we got someone saying that, yeah, we're seeing an influx in individuals that have the ability to work from home, and when they're choosing to make Calgary their home, it's like, yes, vindicated again in regards to what we've been talking about. So why are we investing in Calgary? Well, we just talked about it's a great place, but my background again is economics and finance. Economics is let's look at the statistical patterns to see what's going on there. So we are all in the business. If we're buying real estate, we're essentially investing in roofs over heads. So if we're investing in roofs over heads, we want to make sure that the population is growing in that area because more people means more roofs. Very simple that way. So the population of Calgary is growing, and we have it an average of 10,000 per year, but actually grew 29,000 in 2020. So it had that a big bump in population growth. It also has money. Calgary has the highest millionaires per capita of all the major Canadian cities, and Calgary represents the highest wages and salaries per employee in the country at over 66,000 in 2018. So we're looking at it does have population growth, and it does have the incomes to support higher real estate prices and higher rents in the area, meaning that people can afford to live there and people can afford to pay more to live there. So that's what we see in the past and presently. But this is where it gets really, really exciting. So this is Stats Canada driven data. So we didn't know this until we started investigating and putting our presentation together. So Alberta leads Canada in population growth projections. Alberta population is set to increase by 48% over the next 22 years and will be larger than British Columbia by 2043. That's double the growth rate of Ontario, which is set to grow 24%. So it was that when we looked at actually the growth numbers of Alberta, right now, their population is 600,000 less than British Columbia. By 2043, so in 22 years, it will have a net differential of over 1 million people. That 600,000 less will go to 400,000 people more than British Columbia. And that is absolutely massive. So you get double the growth rate of Ontario. And we've seen the price growth in Ontario, and the majority of growth comes in Southern Ontario. So we've seen the crazy price growth in Ontario, but we've double the growth rate in Alberta. And they have the high paying jobs, and they have the highest per capita millionaires. Like for me, it was like, oh my God, this is looking more towards the future. This is looking like a great opportunity. So the other thing we want to look at is, well, we've talked about they have high wages, but what's their economic growth? What's their economic situation like? Well, you got your big three at top. You have Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver. Those are your top economic powerhouses in Canada. Then you have Calgary right behind there. So it's number 4 in Canada. It's number 4 in Canada for population. It's number 4 in Canada for your gross domestic product, so your GDP. So it has the economic capacity to sustain this growth of individuals coming to the area. Calgary has a larger economic output than entire provinces. It has a larger economy than Saskatchewan. It has a larger economy than Manitoba. So when you look into those things, it's like, okay, it has a strong economic footing. It has population growth looking towards the future. This looks like a great space to start investing in. So it's great that, Kyle and I came to these conclusions, but we are piggybacking a little bit. We need a little confidence to invest in this area as well. So what spurred this initial investment by us is Minto started developing in Calgary. So Minto is an Ontario-based developer, started in Ottawa, does significant work in Toronto and the Greater Toronto area, also does work in Florida. So recently it opened an office in Calgary and started to develop in Calgary. And Minto, to give people that aren't familiar with the builder, again, 60 years, they have over 1,100 employees. They're publicly traded on the Toronto Stock Exchange with $4.1 billion of assets under management. The founding family, the Greenbergs, are worth over $1.5 billion in the top 100 Canadian family, top Canadian business, top wealthiest families list. So if they have 1,100 employees and the company has over 4.1 billion in assets under management, and then they decided to start investing in building in Calgary, for me, that was like, okay, they have a lot of analysts on staff. It's just Kyle and I, we don't have analysts on staff. It's just our own research we do. I'm like, I see good things, and this publicly traded $1 billion plus company sees good things that they also have to answer to their shareholders. I'm like, I see something here. So if I see yes, my smell test has been passed, and this large company sees yes, maybe I'm going to follow their money. Let's follow what the rich people do, because the rich people seem to do very well when they make decisions. So there is a little piggybacking on this. So why it's relevant for Minto for us as well is that we also know these buildings will get built. There's significant financial backing behind them. And as well, because they're establishing themselves in a new market, people from Calgary may not know who Minto is, people in Ontario do. They want to establish their brand in Calgary as well. They want to continue to develop and build in that area as they expand their presence, and they're actively hiring more employees in that area to develop in Calgary. So, that provided us with a lot of confidence to invest in that area. So why are they doing it? Why are we doing it? Well, it's buy low, sell high. Very, very simple strategy. So I talk about Warren Buffett in this slide, talking about the buy low, sell high strategy. That's his strategy. That's how he's amassed his wealth. It's probably the only market in Ontario, not Ontario. It's probably the only market in Canada that has been suppressed all this time. Now we're starting to see signs of life. in the Calgary market. A lot of positive news coming out of that Calgary market in regards to real estate stats. So we're seeing it as the opportunity to buy low. New condo sales prices have dropped 21% since 2017. To me, great stat. That means I should buy. Versus where we're used to buying in the GTA, new condo prices have gone up this percentage this year, this percentage this year. I'm not worried about GTA. GTA is GTA. It's blue chip. You're fine, that kind of thing. But to get that big price growth jump from when you buy pre-construction for such a low price point, and then to make a substantial return on that, well, you just have the law of diminishing returns now in the Toronto market. Again, not a bad thing. It's blue chip. But if you want a growth opportunity, where's your growth opportunity? That's where we saw Calgary as a tremendous opportunity for growth. And I also put this specific, I talk about Warren Buffett, but I picked a very specific article. I talked about how he bought a pipeline. It was his first foray into oil and gas in over 10 years. He bought a $9.7 billion pipeline. Why? Because he knows the long-term need for the distribution of oil and gas into the future as well. So there's very strategic in regards to the article that I picked to highlight Warren. And when we talk about pipelines, so we all heard about Keystone. Absolutely has zero impact on anything I'm talking about in these presentations. So, and if you look at any of my previous presentations, I never talked about Keystone. Trans Mountain is the one that you care about. Keystone, why we never talked about it before? Because it was already canceled. It was canceled in 2015 under the Obama administration. You're dealing with a very political, sensitive topic. So when I did the research, here's the thing. We hit record levels of imports to the U.S. last year, 3.8 million barrels. And that number is going up to 4.2 to 4.5 by 2025. And that'll be the max amount that the U.S. will require from us. Our capacity is 4 million. So we still have room to grow. And because it was canceled in 2015, there were other pipelines in the US that started to expand their capacity. So that future need for oil in the US, we already have the capacity being built into our system to handle that. So Keystone would have just been excess capacity to our system. Now, in regards to actual oil prices. So the issue with Alberta is that it's landlocked. So we don't have easy access to international markets. And this is why Trans Mountain is so much more important than Keystone. Keystone was just continuing to give more oil to basically our sole source largest customer. And because we don't have diversification and we have distribution issues of our oil, that ends up suppressing our price on the worldwide market. So at times in 2020, our oil was selling 50% less than the worldwide oil price per barrel because we have distribution issues. Trans Mountain actually helps us with the distribution issues because what it does is it's all on Canadian soil and it brings us to the West Coast, which then allows us to sell to international markets. And being able to sell to international markets will actually raise the price of Canadian oil. So what we're just looking to do is we want to narrow the gap between the price of Canadian oil and the international price of oil. We don't need the international price of oil to go up. Yes, that helps, but we just need to reduce the gap between the sale price of our oil and the worldwide price of oil. When Trans Mountain is complete, it will increase our oil exporting capacity by 14%. It's going to be tripling the oil production on that line. And as Canadians, we all own that. That was purchased by the federal government, and they have strategic interest in making sure that pipeline is completed. So that pipeline will get completed. So that's what captures our attention. And the great thing is that scheduled to finish in 2023. It's already under construction as we speak. So we talked about distribution, diversification of oil, but what about diversification of the Calgary economy? And this is where things get really, really, really exciting. So what you need to look at is that oil and gas is not going to be the driver of the future Calgary economy, but it's always going to be there. So view it as a backbone, view it as an income stream that is always going to be sitting there in the background. They have an established legacy industry which is always going to provide some sort of economic base for them to work off of. But what the great thing is that Calgary was built on $100 barrel oil. And no, it's not at $100. It's at 62, I think, right now, if we're talking about today. But why that's a good thing is you have all this office space that was originally constructed around 2014 when oil was $100. So you have all this massive construction that happened, all this office space. Then the bottom fell of the oil market. Well, the bottom fell out. All the jobs have already been, all that efficiency needed to be built in, all the layoffs that needed to happen. The majority of that has already happened. So you've already had the shedding of jobs. And then you have all this office space that's sitting empty, 27% of it sitting empty. Why is that a good thing? Well, Calgary ranked in the global top 10 most attractive cities for workers. Calgary has the highest proportion of STEM graduates of major Canadian cities. That's degree programs in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So what that does, it allows all this excess office space creates an affordable infrastructure for other industries to move in, and specifically tech industries, which can then use that backbone of oil and gas to set up and thrive. And we're seeing that live today. Calgary Tech by numbers. Calgary is home to 435 technology companies. 3/4 of these are startups. And there are more than 2,000 open tech jobs in the city and a record over 44,000 Calgarians working in tech right now. This is going to be the future of the Calgary economy. We've seen how it's dramatically changed the landscapes of Toronto, Vancouver, even Montreal. Calgary is the next area which is going to impact. And the tech boom is already happening now. It's just that oil and gas overtakes the headlines. We're doing a deep dive beyond the headlines so we see where the opportunity is in Calgary. So why is that? Again, Calgary is a low cost of doing business when we just look at the rent. So when we look at the average office space to lease, in Calgary, it's $17.50. So when we compare that even just to Edmonton, Edmonton's over 23% more to rent office space. In Toronto, it's over 100% more. In Vancouver, it's over 150% more to rent office space. When you are a startup company, you are very cost sensitive. So if you have an affordable area which has a great backdrop for employees to work, why wouldn't you want to open it up there? And what the great thing is, this is not just me saying this. This is happening. We can identify successes in the Calgary market now. What we've said in past webinars, my joke, I guess it's a joke on me. I bought silver. I took advantage of the silver when I talked about Reddit and like, oh, they're all buying silver. So I bought silver and then I instantly lost 10%. Now what was interesting, I was listening to the radio later that day and their line was, well, when you read about it, it's already too late. And I'm like, yeah, read about it, bought it. Yeah, they made money off me. Well, same thing here. So the positive things are already happening behind the scenes, but you're not reading. You got to dig deep to find it. It's out there, but it's not making the headlines out there. So this is where the opportunity is, when you can see the positive economic footing, the positive growth that's happening behind the scenes. Once you actually hear about it, once it's making front headline news, that's when it's going to be too late. So that's why you want to buy now and looking at positive signs to start making the investment. So, and that's what we did. So if you look at the date on this, December 4th, 2020, these are recent examples. So we're seeing unicorns coming out of Calgary. Unicorn is a company that achieves a $1 billion valuation. Benivity very recently achieved a $1.1 billion valuation, selling off part of their company. But they're not the only one. You had Solium Capital was sold to Morgan Stanley for $1.1 billion in 2019. You had a $1 billion deal between Calgary-based medical research firm Parvus Therapeutics and a San Francisco-based biotechnology company. So you're having these billion-dollar unicorn valuations happen. But what happens is that other people start seeing that as well. So we're starting to see success stories, and other venture capitals are like, whoa, well, now we got like three recent billion-dollar valuations here. Maybe I need to invest in some of these startups that are happening in Calgary because they seem to be hitting big. And that's when you start to see a snowballing effect for these technology companies to start growing, because now you start seeing Calgary hit the world stage as hey, this is a great hot ground for new investment activity. And on top of that, so from an international standpoint, it starts getting noticed, but then also those original founders that have profited, well, they need to invest their money somewhere. And who else knows better than those individuals who they have a friend over that started another company over there going, hey, Brian over there, he's got some good stuff going on. He just needs some more seed capital. So I'm going to invest in his company. So then you start to flourish and you have this cluster starting to happen, and they're all working together, and you start to see that growth. That's what you're going to start. Well, you are seeing it happen live in Calgary right now. I love this article, which highlights it. And this was the Benevity article where it talked about them receiving the valuation. Benevity Solium deal will ultimately help to drive more investment, only because the founders and shareholders of these companies now have capital to reinvest, but because their high profile nature will help to open the eyes of others with deep pockets to what is going on in the technology space in Calgary. These are massive, massive things. And that's when we go and we look at, well, are these companies actually taking office space in Calgary? And they are. So Simon had fewer 20 employees in the spring of 2019. Today, more than 200 employees. They're moving to 79,000 square feet of office space downtown. They're looking to hire an additional 200 to 300 people in 2021. So this was in our presentation since January. And just last week, there was an article about Simon saying that they had just secured new venture capitalist funding, and they're going full steam ahead with hiring those 200 to 300 employees. I'll share that link in the article that when we send the recap out to everyone. Halcyon outgrew its cramped office space in the Blackfoot Industrial Park last year. They went from staff of 3 to now 68 employees. They plan to hire another 150 employees by the end of 2021. They just signed an additional 20,000 square feet of office space in downtown Calgary. LodgeLink will acquire 300 new technology-based jobs over the next 5 years in Calgary, and will acquire an additional 50,000 square feet of office space in Calgary. These things are happening live as we speak. These technology jobs, there's people hiring, there's people, these companies are reinvesting back into the Calgary economy. These individuals that are taking these jobs are going to need roofs over their heads. You are going to see people leave Vancouver, employees leaving Vancouver and Toronto to move to Calgary to take advantage of these new tech job opportunities. This is happening live as we speak. And we're not even just seeing just the tech startups, we're actually seeing international companies looking to locate now in Calgary. ESQ's new Canadian subsidiary called CloudX Technology, they looked all across Canada. Where should we open up our office space? And they chose Calgary as their office space because they see what's going on there. They see the affordability. They see the talent base of individuals that they have there. And also, we have a little crystal ball as well, a little bellwether, as they say, in regards to knowing that this will continue to happen, seeing companies start to move to Calgary and take advantage of it. So it's not just the internal homegrown stuff. You're going to see companies starting to relocate out there because it's already happening somewhere else. If we look at what's happening in California and Texas, well, you have companies leaving California and moving to Texas. Well, why are they leaving California? Well, they're fleeing high taxes. Well, Alberta has the lowest corporate tax rate in Canada. There's no land transfer tax or development charges in Alberta, and there's no provincial sales tax. It is literally the lowest cost tax environment in Canada. That's what Alberta has to offer. So California, also incredibly expensive to live in. Well, what's Toronto and Vancouver? It's incredibly expensive to live in. Well, Calgary has the lowest cost of living out of all major Canadian cities and 9th lowest in North America. They have the low cost housing so that individuals don't have to sleep on couches work and still have a six-figure job in San Francisco, they can actually take care of their employees because their employees can afford to live. The employees will have a better lifestyle, and that's what Calgary has to offer. If companies choose to move these away from these high cost, high tax environments and move them to a lower cost environment, there's a benefit to the company and there's a benefit to the employee. That's where we bring Kyle in. Kyle, where's your wife's head office?
It's in Basel, Switzerland, but has subsidiaries in California, San Francisco.
And your wife was recently promoted. She's global regulation, but before global regulation, she worked directly with the FDA, which is basically the American Regulatory Board for food and drugs, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, but based out of Canada.
Living in Canada. So her job was to align with the FDA from Canada to deal with the production and manufacturing of drugs in the US. And why was she living here?
It was this exact situation that we're talking about. So San Francisco and both Basel are very high cost centers. The amount that you have to pay people for salaries is very high. Housing costs are very high, and it's a very expensive, areas to do business. So by relocating some of their operations, creating a satellite office in Mississauga, they're able to significantly reduce the costs of the company, but still maintaining a very high level of work by people that are highly trained professionals, have gone to university, have top education. They're not giving up anything, but they're paying less for it.
And also even from, we haven't talked about this one lately, but even just from an immigration standpoint and just a talent base in the world, it is a lot easier for an international to work in Canada and get their PR status in Canada than get their green card and working visas in the US, which is a huge advantage as well. So then when we look at Calgary, well, now we have Calgary as the lowest cost environment in Canada for these individuals to work and live. And it's also on a more favorable time zone to companies that are on the West Coast. So these are major things to factor into. We're already seeing it happen now in actually what I was saying with the West Coast, and I just made this realization right now. If we have companies that are moving to Texas that are American based, Texas is on the same time zone as Alberta. So that would even align if they're looking at moving some office space in Canada. You would be directly aligned with the time zone in Texas. So that's just a revelation right now. And then also government regulation. Use no rent control in Alberta, which is favorable to investors, as well as they've already signed off on their post-COVID plan in regards to how to recover the economy. It's a $10 billion stimulus package, and they immediately reduced their corporate tax rate there. So they're actively investing back into their economy. And the great thing was 2 to 3 weeks ago, we shared an article with everyone live in our webinar, and we showed their should I just pull it up, Kyle? Should I go find it?
I think so. Yeah, it's a fantastic article.
Yeah. Let me just find that. I will share it with everyone in the email, the recap email that goes out. But again, we get so excited. We've been doing these presentations since January, and then when we find articles that are talking about what we predicted is going to happen, that's some really, really exciting stuff. So let me just get the article right here.
That's where we believe so strongly in it that we've put our money where our mouths are. We've invested in these Calgary projects already. So
tech firm moves headquarters to Calgary from BC, another sign of the city's future growth. And this article will be shared with everyone in the recap email. A British Columbia-based technology company is shifting their corporate head office to Calgary, sending an important signal to the city on a couple of different wavelengths. Vancouver-based mCloud Technologies, which uses artificial intelligence, cloud computing, and sensors to monitor and improve the efficiency of energy-intensive assets from commercial buildings to oil and gas facilities, will announce Tuesday it signed a memorandum of understanding with Invest Alberta to relocate their head office to Calgary. The technology company, which already has about 100 employees in the city, expects to increase its total hiring this year and the coming months as it moves its existing office in Calgary's northeast to the downtown. We're looking to double our size of revenue this year. I'm not sure that will double our headcount, but most of our growth will occur in Alberta, who will be moving to the city. The CEO, Russ Meekin, who will be moving to the city, said in an interview. So here we go. We have a live example of this article, from February 2nd to the beginning of this month. We're seeing companies now looking to relocate to Calgary. Are we going to see, for example, a Amazon or a Facebook, big multinational relocate to Calgary? No, we're probably not going to see that. But we will see these startups. We will see these small to medium-sized companies that are looking to compete in a cost advantage move to this a more affordable city. And also from a competition standpoint, not just of the cost of doing business, but also of the acquiring the talent. So if you have in Vancouver and Toronto these large multinationals that are scooping up all the talent pool, well, then you're left with just the remaining individuals to staff your company. But if you go into a market that they don't exist in, which again is the second lowest cost of living in North America and the 9th in Canada, and the number one place to live in North America, that's where, again, from a lifestyle perspective, they can have a competitive advantage as well. So it's not just from a cash perspective, it's also a talent attracting perspective where they can have a competitive advantage against the large multinationals. So these are major things you have to think of when you think of the diversification of the Calgary economy. So again, looking at the exodus of companies from Silicon Valley, who's leaving? Hewlett-Packard. Again, this is not the number of employees that's moving to Texas, but just to show the scope of these companies. They have 60,000 employees worldwide. Oracle, 135,000 employees worldwide. Tesla, I think we all know who Tesla is, 4,800 employees worldwide. Elon Musk just moved to Texas. Dropbox, their CEO, just moved to Texas. They have 2,800 employees worldwide. So there's massive change happening. Will California be there? California is always going to be there, but you're going to have another state, another city that's going to bite into part of their market share. And why can Alberta do this? So we talked about the low cost tax environment. Well, this again, this is Stats Canada slide. When I found this one, this was really eye-opening to me. So we talked about oil and gas being a backbone. With that backbone, that's allowed Alberta to really not having to go into debt until fairly recently. With the drop in oil prices. So when we look at the net financial debt per capita in Canada, Ontario, we're one of the most indebted provinces. I know we're one of the most indebted sovereign states in the world, but we're also, from a per capita level, we're one of the highest in Canada, at nearly $19,000 per individual. Whereas Alberta has the lowest. I don't have the exact number, but just looking at this chart, it looks like it's under $2,500 per individual. If we look at the average in Canada, that's over $10,000. So Alberta has the ability to make the tax adjustments, to make the investments in these new industries, in these new sectors, to attract them to their province because they have such a low debt burden in the province. Will Alberta's growth of net financial debt per capita grow? Yeah, it's going to probably grow the fastest in Canada. But that's a good thing, because when you have the ability to spend to invest, that's what you've saved that for. That's what you've saved for these rainy day periods, to save for the transition of your economy. Again, oil and gas will always be there and provide some funding, but now you can pivot off of that, use that backbone that's been created, and then really make a push into these other sectors. So that really positions Alberta to do extremely well in the future. And we show this slide just to show the diversification of the Calgary economy. Whereas oil and gas now is only 6.5% of the overall workforce in Calgary, and that's combined with forestry, mining, fishing. I don't know what fishing they do out there. and quarry. So you have that sector only representing only 6.5% of the total workforce in that area. And that's where we're going to see the continued diversification of the technology space. And then boom and bust. So Calgary is typically a boom and bust city. And that's a city that Kyle and I are originally from. Sudbury lived and died previously by the nickel, but they diversified their economy so that you don't have these these shocks to the economy based on the nickel price up in Sudbury. And we're seeing the same thing happen in Calgary. So they are now exiting their bust cycle. I'm not worried about the price of real estate in Alberta going down or in Calgary going down. That's already happened. Now where we see positive population growth, diversification of the economy into the tech sector, the completion of the Trans Mountain Pipeline happening in 2023. Now you're going to start seeing the transition to the boom cycle, and you'll see prices shoot up in Calgary. That's what it's historically done. We're buying low and we're looking to sell high. This is the opportunity to buy in now, not when you're reading all the good news headlines, because you're going to lose part of your upside in regards to that upward trajectory growth. Now is why you want to do it. And when we look at the investment incentives out there, we're able to buy with only 5% down in the projects we invest in. So that means you're only committing 5% of the purchase price, and a very low purchase price at that, again, starting in the 200s and going up into the 400s. So your commitments will be anywhere in the $12,000 range to just over $20,000 range. You have the ability to sign the unit, though we don't recommend that being your strategy. We'll buy and hold strategy, you always make more money. Why we're comfortable making these investments as well in the city is we've negotiated 2-year rental guarantees with full property management with the builder. And what it is actually a lease back. So the builder is going to lease back the unit from you from the date of occupancy. That then gives us a runway for that boom economy to flourish. And we're not trying to hit it right on the nail on the head. So basically you get build time. These buildings will complete 2023, 2024, more 2024 actually. You get 3 years of build time, then you get 2 years of rental guarantee. You're not worried about this property until 2026. And all those good things that we've been talking about, those have all been happening in the background, or those are going to be the forefront by the time your rental guarantee lease back is up. And then you can decide what you want to do with the unit. And then from a tax environment, there's no development charge or other closing costs in Alberta. What development charges are pass-through costs by the municipality that we see here in Toronto and the GTA, that can top over $20,000 on these projects. And land transfer tax, we have double land transfer tax in Toronto, and outside of Toronto, you have the provincial land transfer tax. That could be $20,000. So that's $40,000 that I got to pay on closing when I invest in Toronto versus $0 in Alberta. And all the units are cash flow positive with the rental guarantee. Plus, the rental guarantee is light in regards to what the actual market rates are as well. So that also gives more upside on the cash flow as well. So when you look at these numbers, can I say you're getting a positive cash flow in Toronto? Very difficult, extremely difficult. You have very, very high closing costs, tens of thousands of dollars. I don't have any of that in Calgary. And then we give examples of this specific examples of what I've bought out there. So Era, which was the first condo I bought it for just under $390,000. When I factor in the mortgage, property tax, maintenance fee, and then the lease back rent, which is calculated before GST, I'm looking at positive cash flow of $265 per month, fully managed. And then East Hills, which is we're having the phase 2 of that launch at the end of March. A very affordable suburban location in Southeast Calgary. I bought a 2-bedroom there for $270,900 with parking and locker. That one there, I'm looking at positive cash flow of over $200 per month. these are incredible things. And when these things go to market, they sell out fairly quickly. And when we look at them, when we look at the deposit, we have to look at our capital outlay. So again, if I'm buying in Toronto, it'll be a six-figure capital outlay, easily $100, $120, $140,000 will be your deposit. There, it's only 5%. So if I look at ERA, it was under $20,000. So if my property goes up by $20,000 in 2 years, I've doubled my initial investment. It's a great rate of return, doubling your investment. East Hills, 5% deposit, under $15,000. So if it goes up by $15,000, I've over doubled my investment. I don't need large growth to double my initial capital outlay. Now I'm expecting these properties to go up $100,000 each, but I don't need a large growth from the onset to make it a good investment. And then when we talk about the pro investment foundation that Alberta has, no rent control, no final buyer tax, no land transfer tax, no provincial sales tax, no development charges. And then the $10 billion stimulus package, including the reducing of corporate taxes. These are massive things that exist in Alberta right now. It's a favorable environment to invest in. And it's not an environment where we're not going to see population growth. It's not an environment that we don't see a strong economic base. These strong economic base and population growth already exist, already planned in. And whenever we have one of these projects come to market, they sell out. ERA sold out 180 units in 3 months starting in November 2019. Annex, we sold out the investor release of 40 units in 2 months over the summer of 2020. And East Hills sold out 87 units in 2 weeks in November 2020. We just did our ERA 2 launch, which is the second phase of ERA. It was a 40-unit launch. That project right now is currently sold out. Agreements are in there. Conditional periods or 10-day cooling off periods. So when these projects come, they sell out very quickly because the investors have been recognizing the great opportunity they are. So what we're going to do is we're going to open up the floor to questions. There's a Q&A box at the bottom. I see that we have some questions already lined up, so I'm going to go right into that right now. Okay, what? Not sure what that question is, talking about AirPods. So something about the province doing. I don't know what the question is, but I'll say this, that if we're talking about Airbnb, also Alberta is a pro Airbnb and Calgary is a pro Airbnb city. There's no regulations against putting your properties on Airbnb. And I know there is significant cash flow that can be generated by putting your properties on Airbnb. We don't really talk about that too much because really we like a nice passive investment that someone else is managing. But there is Airbnb upside in the Calgary market. Again, Alberta, Calgary, these are very capitalist environments where you're not going to see the same restrictions to business that you see in other municipalities. It's just how Albertans are wired, really is what it is, and how their political framework is. So there is an Airbnb upside out there. Immigrants are landing in either Toronto or Vancouver. You're doing any plans to change that? They're also landing in Calgary. So if you just look at, it's an affordability play, job play. You will have people look at establishing themselves in Alberta, and even just talking to individuals on the ground, even talking to clients that are locally based in Calgary, and they're relaying the message in regards to the international opportunities that are happening in Calgary. Immigrants don't just land in Vancouver and Toronto. They can land in any city in Canada, and they are also landing in Calgary.
They tend to land in the major cities, and Calgary is the fourth largest of that. So they definitely get a lot of immigrants, and it's actually in line with Vancouver for the percent of the population of new immigrants each year. So lots of immigration going to be coming to Calgary.
Yep. Okay. Great. So great question here about mortgages. So these are all pre-construction purchases. So what that is you're signing a contract with the builder to purchase the property at a set price in the future. And you lock into that with 5% down. If you're doing it in Toronto, it would be 20% down. You're seeing some more favorable environments, deposit structures in Toronto, 15% maybe right now. When you go to get the property, when you actually get keys in the property, go get a mortgage, if it's an investment property, you're going to have to eventually put 20% down. But what it is you're not putting 20% down now, you're putting that 20% down to get a mortgage in the future when the building closes. So anyone that's doing their numbers, you will have to factor in at one point, you're going to have to come up with the remaining deposit of 15%, but that's not happening until final closing with the property. Great question here where someone asks, why condos, not detached or half duplexes? Because they're easy. And I own apartment buildings. I've owned apartment buildings. I still own one apartment building. I owned 3 at one point. I own a triplex. There are more issues that come with these properties because with a condo, it's a concrete box in the sky. I'm only managing what's inside my 4 concrete walls, or I guess 6 if you're looking at the ceiling and the floor. So what can go wrong in those walls? Well, maybe appliance, something goes wrong there. It's very limited what's going to happen inside of that property. When I go outside of the walls, I'm dealing with the building as well. And there's a lot more work that comes with that building, where it's maintaining that building and a lot more things that can go wrong with that building. Also, the type of tenant that I attract in a freehold property like the detached or duplex versus a condo. A condo, I'm going to attract the young professional. They go to work, they come home. Very, very limited wear and tear they're going to put on a unit versus a house. I'm probably going to attract some sort of family. I have 2 young children. I see what they do to my house, and I own it. Versus if someone's renting a property they don't even know, and they will be rougher on the house and they will be harder on the house. So I don't actually have an issue with detached or half duplexes, but I'm all about a passive investing style versus a active investing style. So the more things I have to manage, the more active I am in my investment. And also because I'm located here in Toronto, adding extra layers of things that I have to deal with, especially something I can't drive to. It's a 4.5-hour flight just to get there. I don't really want to get that involved in those things. So again, no issue with duplexes or detached homes. They're just more work. When is your exit point for these investments? When I feel that the rate of appreciation, where I hit a rate of diminishing returns and my investment could do some better somewhere else. So I'm always constantly looking at the market. Where could does it make sense for me to hold or when should I sell? So there is no direct answer to that. I'm just always monitoring my portfolio. Just like if you have a stock portfolio, you're probably always looking at your stock portfolio. So you want to do a review every year just to see where you are with your assets. So I'll give you an example of advice I'm giving people. So I have people calling me going, hey, I have a townhouse in Kitchener-Waterloo. For those that aren't from Ontario, Kitchener-Waterloo is probably about an hour and 20 minutes from Toronto. And those markets have seen a dramatic increase in prices during COVID as we've had an exodus from Toronto. I can get into a 20-minute conversation, but that I'm not going to. But if someone reaches out to me about a townhouse in Kitchener-Waterloo, I'm like, big spike, don't know how sustainable that is. Maybe a good time to sell and cash out of that asset and redirect that investment into somewhere where it can be a better performing asset. So that's where you're constantly monitoring. It's my exit point. I constantly monitor it, but I'd say my holding point is at least till the end of the rental guarantee period. That's what I'd be looking at there. the insurance question, we have had that. The insurance in regards, I know why it happened in BC. There's a specific reason why it happened in BC. It happened because of its proximity to the ocean, and it's a natural disaster based item, and it's how the policies were underwritten by insurance companies. And for BC, it's proximity to fault lines that has impacted the insurance rates in British Columbia. So it is more specific to how underwriters and actuaries in specific city. That's one part of it, how underwriters in specific cities are viewing potential natural disasters in the future. And number two was actually how these assets were underwritten in the past, and there's been adjustments to that. So you're not going to see that same increase in Alberta. British Columbia was hit the hardest because it's most prone potentially to natural disasters or climate change related disasters in the future due to its proximity to fault lines and rising oceans and forest fires and all those kind of things. Very detailed answer on that one, but it was a great question because we do get that question. I'm getting some questions about what rate of appreciation. Here's the thing, not looking for appreciation right now. People are asking me how much of my condo has gone up. You're buying low, selling high. We're just coming out of the bust period now. So I'm not looking at what my year appreciation is on this. This is why I have my build time and then on my two-year rental guarantee as well. If I'm putting $20,000 down, Kyle, what opportunity in Ontario, now I'm going to say Southwestern this time or Southern, what opportunity in Ontario can I buy something with 20% down? I mean, $20,000 down. 20%.
You didn't even get a parking spot.
So what it is I'm locking in at a very, very low capital outlay for a large return I'm looking over a 5-year period. I can't look at things year to year. And again, if we look at things year to year right now, we have a statistical anomaly that's happening. So if I were to run a economic data set, I would actually have to throw out the year that we're talking about, which is 2020. You got to throw that year out. It's not applicable because it's a spike in the data set. You got to look at how things level out. So you're not looking at what that is. Also, when it talks about unemployment rate, you can't look at unemployment rates right now. They're not applicable because unemployment rates are way out of whack right now. So you got to take that stat, not relevant right now. Throw that out. You have a rental guarantee in place right now. It's a 5-year period where you're looking at this. So you really can't look at things in the now because the now isn't applicable. It's not a relevant data set right now. I notice there's some chat going on. Okay, so please clarify, elaborate rental guarantee statement. Yeah, so what the rental guarantee statement, it's actually a lease back from the builder, and how the builder calculates it. The builder takes a percentage of the purchase price, typically 6%. They divide that by 12, and that gives you what your lease back rent will be. So from the first every month, you're guaranteed that rent. That check will go to you. You're getting that check from the builder. That happens. Unit could be empty. There could be someone living in the unit. The rent could be lower. The rent could be higher. But you're going to get that set rent for 2 years no matter what, and there's no cost for you to rent it out. It also includes management as well. Great question. Do you see the condo markets being better in downtown Calgary versus suburbs? It's purely price driven. I bought in both. So you're looking at about $100,000 differential between buying something in the suburbs versus buying something in the downtown. That's roughly what the differential is. I see opportunity in both. One being in a good downtown location, the other one just being dirt. I hate using the word cheap, but just incredibly affordable. That's so I see opportunity in both ends. And so someone's asking about the projects which are 5% down. Those will be in the email that we are sending out. So Carlo, if you send me an email, you will get a recap, but you'll get those opportunities as well with the 5% down opportunities. Different projects have different structures on how they deal with those. So it could be a more in-depth conversation on that. Is there any other questions from anyone else? If not, we'll wrap it up. We've taken over an hour of your time. More. Sorry, someone asked me what my thoughts on the market in 12 months, 24 months, 36 months. More. When this email goes out, anyone can book an individual chat with myself or Kyle. But we will wrap this up because we've gone over the hour mark now, and we won't take any more time from anyone. And I'm jumbling on my words. So thank you everyone for coming on. Recap will go out, and you'll be alerted about any new projects that are launching. And Carlo, you can reach out to me directly about things as well. Okay. Thank you so much. Talk to everyone later. Bye-bye.